The plastic baggie hit my windshield with a soft thud. White powder scattered across the glass like fresh snow. And before I could even process what was happening, Linda Morrison was screaming at the top of her lungs. "Drugs, he's got drugs in his car." Her voice cut through the quiet Tuesday morning like a fire alarm. Within seconds, neighbors poured out of their houses, phones already recording. Linda stood there in her signature sharp pink blazer, pointing at my Honda Civic like she'd just discovered buried treasure. "I knew it," she shrieked, her orange hair catching the sunlight. "I knew Daniel Rodriguez was up to no good. Look at this evidence." Two men in black tactical gear emerged from behind her, Brad and Keith, her so-called HOA security team. They yanked me out of my car before I could even unbuckle my seatbelt. My coffee spilled across the driveway, my briefcase scattered papers everywhere, and Linda? She paraded around that baggie like she'd just won the lottery. "Citizens of Willow Creek Estates," she announced to the growing crowd, "your HOA president has just caught a drug dealer red-handed." I stayed silent, watching her performance, because that's what this was, a performance. And Linda Morrison had no idea she was about to give the performance of her lifetime. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where you're watching from around the world. To understand how we got here, you need to know Linda Morrison. At 52, she ruled Willow Creek Estates like her own personal kingdom. Divorced, bitter, and armed with a laminated copy of HOA bylaws that she carried everywhere like a holy text. Linda had been targeting me for months. It started small, a $50 fine because my mailbox was 2 inches too far from regulation position. Then came the citation for having my garbage cans visible. For more than 4 hours after pickup, the woman literally sat in her window with binoculars, timing everything. But the breaking point came 3 weeks ago. My daughter Maria had drawn hopscotch squares on our driveway with sidewalk chalk. Harmless kid stuff, right? Wrong. Linda slapped me with a $300 fine for unauthorized street art and demanded I pressure wash it off immediately. When Maria saw me scrubbing away her artwork, she cried for an hour. That's when I knew Linda Morrison wasn't just power-hungry, she was cruel. She had her enforcers too. Brad Williams, a wannabe cop who got kicked out of police academy, and Keith Patterson, a gym rat who thought his muscles made him scary. They wore official-looking uniforms with HOA enforcement patches and carried tasers they probably ordered online. The three of them made life miserable for anyone who dared question their authority. The Johnsons moved out after Linda fined them for having a non-regulation doormat. The elderly Mr. Chen paid over $800 in bogus citations rather than fight back. But what Linda didn't know was that her newest target wasn't some ordinary suburban dad. My name is Daniel Rodriguez, and I've been the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation for the past 3 years. To everyone else, I was just the quiet guy who worked in government consulting and drove a sensible Honda. But Linda was about to learn the hard way that some people you just don't mess with. Back to that Tuesday morning, Brad and Keith had me in zip ties, face pressed against my car hood while Linda held court in the middle of the street. "This man has been dealing drugs right under our noses," she declared, waving the baggie like a trophy. "But your vigilant HOA president never stops watching." The crowd murmured. Some looked shocked, others skeptical. Mrs. Patterson from next door shook her head. "That doesn't seem right. Daniel's such a nice man." Linda whipped around. "Nice men don't hide cocaine in their vehicles. Patricia, wake up." Brad leaned down, his breath reeking of energy drinks. "Where'd you get it, Rodriguez? Who's your supplier?" I stayed calm. 20 years in federal law enforcement teaches you patience. "You might want to check whose fingerprints are actually on that bag, Brad." He shoved me harder against the hood. "Shut up, drug boy." That's when Linda made her fatal mistake. She pulled out her phone and started live streaming to the neighborhood Facebook group. "Neighbors, this is your HOA president bringing you live coverage of a major drug bust. The FBI should give me a medal for keeping our streets safe." The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Keith suggested they detain me properly at the clubhouse. Linda clapped her hands together like a delighted child. "Excellent idea. Let's make this official." They dragged me 3 blocks to the community center while neighbors followed. Like it was some twisted parade, kids peeked out from behind parents, confused and scared. One teenager was live streaming the whole thing on TikTok. Inside the clubhouse, Linda had transformed into a full-blown dictator. She set up a folding table like a judge's bench and placed the baggie in the center like evidence in a murder trial. Inside the clubhouse, Linda had transformed into a full-blown dictator. She set up a folding table like a judge's bench and placed the baggie in the center like evidence in a murder trial. "Daniel Rodriguez," she announced, "you stand accused of drug possession, corrupting our family neighborhood, and violating HOA statute for 7B. No criminal activity." I almost laughed. HOA statute for 7B? She was making up laws on the spot. Any last words before I call the real police? She smirked, clearly enjoying every second. I looked up at her calmly. Linda, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Her smile faltered for just a moment, but then Brad snorted and said, "Nice try, dude. You watch too much TV. If only they knew." That's when fate stepped in. As Keith roughly searched through my scattered briefcase, something caught Mrs. Patterson's eye. A small leather wallet had fallen from the inner pocket, lying open on the clubhouse floor. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. Linda bent down and snatched it up, expecting to find credit cards or maybe a driver's license. Instead, her face went white as fresh paint. Staring back at her was a gold badge and official ID. Director Daniel Rodriguez, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Linda's hands started shaking. This is fake. Has to be fake. You can buy anything online these days." But her voice cracked, and everyone heard it. Mrs. Patterson gasped. "That looks real to me." Another neighbor added, "Those are federal seals. You can't fake those." Brad grabbed the badge from Linda, squinting at it like he was examining a rare artifact. "No way this is real." But even he sounded less certain now. I stayed quiet, letting the doubt spread through the room like wildfire. Linda was starting to panic, her confident facade crumbling. "Even if it's real," she stammered, "it doesn't matter. He still had drugs. I found them." That's when my phone rang. The ringtone was distinctive, a secure line that only a handful of people had access to. The caller ID flashed on the screen. Deputy Director Martinez. Linda's eyes went wide. The room was so quiet that when I answered using voice command, everyone heard the conversation. "Director Rodriguez, we have a code yellow situation. Your GPS shows you're stationary. Do you need backup?" I looked directly at Linda. "Actually, Martinez, I think I might need an extraction team. I'm being held against my will by civilians impersonating law enforcement, sir. We have units to minutes. Out. Are you in immediate danger?" "Not anymore," I said, still staring at Linda. "But someone here is about to be." The sound of sirens filled the air. But these weren't regular police sirens, they were the low, ominous wail of federal vehicles. Linda looked like she'd seen a ghost. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." Through the clubhouse windows, we could see 3 black SUVs racing down the street, followed by 2 more unmarked cars. They stopped with military precision, doors flying open simultaneously. Deputy Director Martinez emerged first, a tall, imposing woman in a dark suit, followed by 6 agents in tactical gear, real tactical gear, not the costume party knockoffs Brad and Keith were wearing. "Director Rodriguez," Martinez called as she entered the clubhouse, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine, Deputy, but we have some interesting suspects here." Linda tried one last desperate play. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man had drugs in his car. I was just..." Martinez cut her off with a single raised hand. She examined the scene. Me in zip ties, the baggie on the table, Linda's fake security team looking like deer in headlights. "Ma'am, you've just committed about 7 federal crimes," Martinez said calmly, "starting with false imprisonment of a federal officer." The agents moved with practiced efficiency. They carefully photographed the baggie, collected Linda's phone as evidence, and began processing the scene. One agent scanned the cocaine baggie with a portable device. "Clear prints, Deputy Director, and they don't belong to Director Rodriguez." Linda's knees buckled. "I want a lawyer. I want a lawyer right now." "You'll need several," Martinez replied. "Brad Williams and Keith Patterson, you're under arrest for impersonating federal agents and conspiracy." As the real handcuffs clicked into place, Brad started crying. Keith just kept saying, I didn't know. But Linda, she went out swinging. "This is a setup. You're all corrupt. I'm the law in this neighborhood." Even in cuffs, she was still trying to assert authority that never existed. The trial was a media circus. News vans lined Willow Creek Estates for weeks. The story had everything: suburban drama, federal intrigue, and the most spectacular downfall since Watergate. Linda's lawyer tried everything. They claimed entrapment, mistaken identity, even temporary insanity. Nothing worked. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage of Linda planting the drugs, her fingerprints on the baggie, recorded threats against multiple neighbors, and financial records showing she'd been embezzling HOA funds to pay Brad and Keith. The neighbors testified one by one, sharing stories of Linda's abuse. Mrs. Chen talked about the $500 fine for hanging laundry outside. The Martinez family described being harassed for speaking Spanish in their own backyard. A young mother cried as she explained how Linda had reported her to child services for letting her kids play too loudly. When it was my turn to testify, I kept it simple. I moved to Willow Creek for peace and quiet. Instead, I found a woman who believed she was above the law. Today, she learned otherwise. Linda got 12 years in federal prison. Brad and Keith got 5 years each for their cooperation. The HOA was dissolved and reformed under federal oversight. But the real victory wasn't the prison sentences. It was watching the neighborhood come alive again. Kids played in driveways without fear. Neighbors decorated their homes how they wanted. The Martinez family hung their laundry with pride. 6 months later, we held the first annual Willow Creek Freedom Festival, a block party celebrating the end of Linda's reign. Children drew hopscotch squares on every driveway. It was beautiful. As for Linda, last I heard, she was still filing complaints from prison, this time about the color of her jumpsuit and the unauthorized activities in the recreation yard. Some people never learn. Here's what Linda Morrison didn't understand. Power without accountability isn't power at all, it's just bullying with paperwork. She thought she could frame an FBI director and walk away laughing. Instead, she walked away in handcuffs. The truth always comes out. Justice always finds a way. And sometimes, the quiet neighbor you're trying to destroy is the last person you should mess with. What's the craziest HOA story you've ever heard? Drop it in the comments below. And if you want more stories where bullies get exactly what they deserve, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because karma might be slow, but it's never late. Remember, you never know who you're really dealing with. So maybe, just maybe, try being kind to your neighbors. You never know which one might have the power to shut you down for good.